Hey guys, how y'all doing? The following is a clip from a conversation I had with the Modern Papist here on YouTube. I'll leave a link down to the full conversation down below, and if you guys want to check out the full conversation on his channel, I greatly recommend it. I've been wanting to talk with other creators here on YouTube for a while, and hopefully this is just the first of many other conversations to come. There are other creators that I'd like to talk to, and if you're one and you want me to be on your channel and to have a conversation, why not? I'm feeling the mood for that kind of thing these days. But anyway, enjoy the conversation. Peace out. That's very indicative to some of our societal issues. I think some of our civilizational issues. But I think the dangers of AI, whether or not it's going to be sentient or not, or whether or not, because some limitations are going to be. And we don't know what the future is going to hold, right? And we don't know if maybe the economy is going to collapse. With the First Republic Bank collapsing now, like the economy might collapse before we're able to, fund these big projects, and who knows? But as long as machines don't replace human soldiers completely, I think I'm going to be more or less more comfortable, because like the same principle that applies to governments, right? If the common man is not necessary to the power of the state, the common man will not participate in the power of the state. And it's the same thing with the human species.
Yeah.
If a human soldier is not necessary, right, then we're not going to be able to defend ourselves against the machine. We're not going to be necessary for the decisions that the machine makes. I think if things continue to develop and continue to improve, this is one of the videos that I have planned. We are going to have to keep developing technologically, but maybe in a way that improves human capabilities. So like a good example is like going to fiction, just for fun, right? I mean, science. We're living in the age of science fiction. We literally have right.
Yeah.
So why not go full crazy? Let's talk about like the concept of the space marine. I think the space marine is an interesting concept. It's basically like a space knight, right? From Starship Troopers, from Robert Heinlein to Warhammer to Halo, to all these like famous iterations of the Space Marine.
Yeah.
They have a very medieval component to them, right? They're knights. They're like knights in space. They have armor, which is why they're defined by their armor in every case. And I think the idea of this highly technological exoskeleton, I think that is where technology should go, where technology evolves and develops around the human form, in service of the human form.
Yes. Absolutely.
Exactly. So I think so. It's not about stopping technological development. It's about going on the right path to technological development. Because technology is not one linear path. It's a tree with many different branches, and you can go to many different paths, right? There's a good path and a wrong path when it comes to technological development, and we have to keep developing, but we have to develop in the right way that makes technology serve us and not us serve technology, to the point that we might even be completely redundant and it might not even have any use for us, which people talk about seriously. Like, oh, AI is going to be so powerful, we're not even going to be used. Like, do you really want to live in that kind of world? Do you really want to enable that kind of world? It just seems crazy to me.
Joke's on them. They wouldn't be living in that world.
Yeah.
I mean, but I guess like one of the things that I've thought about is when it comes to AI and basically this handing over of responsibility, I mean, even for one's life, is, going simply to Genesis, when God talks to Adam about after he bit into the fruit, what's he do? Well, he blames Eve. And then what's Eve do? Blames the snake. And it's like, it's always this, pushing to the side. I don't want to be responsible for this. Let something else be responsible. And, we'll, through our sophistry, justify this thing that we made with our own hands to make the decisions for us. So we'll pretend that this isn't something that we did. Yeah.
And personal interest and mystery of iniquity and all that. This is something I struggle with a lot. Is academically, I'm trained because being more in the humanities. I know that you're more of a scientist, which I always wanted to be, but I never had the inclinations for that. But in the humanities, we're trained a lot to see things from this very modern perspective as a system, right? Where you have environmental factors and greater
greater realities above, human sin or nature that determines human options, right? Geography or whatever,
Right.
physical laws and whatnot, and that's actually true a lot of the times because environmental factors and tendencies of history do limit the options that humans have, and thus you can more or less explain the options that people will take or have taken on those terms. But we also can't forget human decision making as a major factor, and as a result, the flaws in human decision making, right? Sin, and also the good side, virtue, and how these things can determine historical outcomes, and even the success of an entire culture is the decisions on that culture and the leaders of that culture were willing to take. The limitations of AI a lot of times is because AI is narrow AI, right? So like we have one AI which can be very good at calculations, but then it can't write a poem. And then you have ChatGPT, which it can't do math, but it can write a poem, right? And which is why the holy grail of AI would be AGI, right? Artificial general intelligence, but still elusive. Maybe it's on the horizon, maybe it's not. I do not know. But I think when it comes to whether or not AI can be sentient, this is it could be a very interesting philosophical conversation we can have with this, and theological as well, because if we are imago Dei, right, made in the image of God.
Yep.
We don't really know exactly what that entails, and if God has the ability to create consciousness, I mean, maybe God has given us that ability as well, or maybe to simulate it so well. It won't be as good as we are, because God is a better craftsman than we are. But maybe we could simulate consciousness well enough, maybe not never being pure consciousness, but being imago mentis, maybe like made in the image, right? Maybe like we're making these things based off our brains, right? The machine learning is all based on, and so we are made in the image of God, and then we're making AI in our image. So AI is like a reflection of a reflection.
So God did give us the ability to do that, but it's with our bodies. And I would actually make the argument that the whether or not we can do something is a different question than whether or not we should. And go back to Jurassic Park and that whole conversation, because it is directly related. Like especially in Jurassic Park, which is, I just kind of pulled it off the top of my head. It is directly related because you're dealing with, supposedly animals, or at least to some people animals, except they're made of metal and wire. They're not made of flesh and blood. And so, I think that's a really important distinction here when, like you said, you're making a reflection of a reflection. And there's responsibility with that. We're not in charge of the universe that these things are being put into. God is in charge of the universe. And although we trust God, we are making these things more or less without him in mind. And like, that's a huge problem.
Or even trying to replace him, right? According to Elon Musk, like Larry Page, like one of the co-founders of Google, wants to create digital God. And you have a lot of these people in Silicon Valley and that do have like these pseudo-mystical, pseudo-religious views of AI. Ray Kurzweil being a example. Yeah.
Well, what's very interesting is Elon Musk, several times is like AI is like one of the greatest dangers to humanity.
Yeah, and I agree with that, actually.
So yeah, I hope you guys like that. Sorry for the audio quality. Going back to my roots with a crappy sound system. So yeah, please be sure to watch the rest of it on his channel. He already posted part 1, and then subscribe to his channel to get that part 2, because we had a 2-hour conversation and he posted 1 hour up, and then the second hour is going to be later. So I recommend you guys subscribe to his channel so you guys can get the second part of our conversation. And my video on Ukraine and my time there and my reflections that I had while I was in Ukraine is going to come out soon. Hopefully this week, but probably in the beginning of the next one. And the Space Marine video is going to be something that I'm going to take my time more with, and because I really want to do it well. But I might make some other videos after the Ukraine video before the one on the Space Marine. But here, this conversation is a little snippet of what I was thinking about writing. I'd like to thank all my patrons for their unyielding support for everything I do. And thank you all for listening to my ramblings. Have a good day, my friends.